On a Friday in September of 2007, cricket fans from the game's two biggest countries were glued to their screens to watch their teams fight out in a classic World Cup match. India were taking on Pakistan in the inaugural 2020 World Cup, and Pakistan were leading a fight back to inspire what could have been a charge for their first major trophy of the 21st century. After the 20 overs, Pakistan had clawed the game back through a remarkable recovery to tie the game. With the game hanging on by a knife's edge, cricket had to delve into depths it had never reached on the world stage before. Overtime. Before the Super Over was invented, games were decided via penalty shootouts in 2020 cricket. What may sound like a fun idea, this ending arguably tarnished the making of a classic World Cup match. Today, we're going to deep dive into the controversy of the bowl out and why it is no longer used in the game of cricket.
India have won.
Set up in the same format as a penalty shootout in football, 5 players from each side would take turns shooting, or in the case of cricket, bowling, at a set of stumps which stood unguarded. If a player hit the stumps, it would count as a hit. If they didn't hit the stumps, not only would it count as a miss, but it would actually be quite embarrassing for the player, because as a professional cricket player, you should be able to hit the stumps when asked to. If after the 5 balls teams remained on equal points, the game would turn into sudden death. What the bowler showed was that in such unique playing conditions, under such immense pressure, even some of the most accurate and best bowlers of all time would crack and stumble at the most pivotal points in the bowl-off. There are only around half a dozen recorded cases of a bowl-out being used, and we have to go back to the 16th of February 2006 in Auckland, New Zealand, for the first time a bowl-out was used in international cricket.
It's a tied game and everyone's confused as to what will happen now.
What seemed like a relatively easy task, no one from either side was actually able to hit the stumps for the first 4 attempts until a young Shane Bond took a hold of the ball and clattered home the first hit, followed by another, with medium pacer Scott Styris finishing off the game with the Kiwis winning 3-0 in the bowl out.
New Zealand have won it. Styris has come through. Bond got the initiative.
The use of the bowl out worked in the context of this game because in the early days of 2020 cricket, the game wasn't taken with the same level of seriousness as it is today. But as 2020 cricket tournaments gained credibility and the stakes of these games were raised, the fun faded, and with that, the controversy rose. Because if we fast forward a year, change up the teams to 2 countries with a bit of rivalry, and throw in the fact that suddenly we are in a World Cup, you may think differently about the implications of a bowl out. Pakistan lost this match despite a heroic comeback performance during the game by Misbah-ul Haq to claw his side back to a tie. This performance was arguably lost amongst the controversy of their legendary bowlers failing in the bowl out though, as like in the New Zealand game, their bowlers did not perform, with Yasser Arafat, Umar Gul and Shahid Afridi all missing the stumps on their attempts. The fallout from this game was relentless, as it interrupted Pakistan's unbeaten start to the World Cup and dropped them to 2nd place in the group stage. What people started to realise though was that after this match, while sport and World Cups more generally can be brutal at times, the bowl out and its use in cricket seemed like rather an unfair way of determining the winner of a match. This is why after the World Cup in 2008, the ICC reassessed the use of the bowl out and it decided the format would be scrapped in favour of the Super Over, which still remains as the preferred choice for tied match results to this day. The question is though, why did penalties not work in cricket? Because in many other sports out there, they are still the preferred choice of determining a winner of a tied match. There isn't a definitive answer to this question, but I'm going to try my best today to give my thoughts. Sports that typically use penalties at the end of games are sports that are ultimately about scoring goals. While these sports that use penalties have a lot more to them than just scoring goals, goals are the scoring metric to win that game. The game of cricket is not a sport about hitting the set of stumps, and a bowler has never really been given a situation where they're told to bowl at an unguarded set of stumps. A good bowler usually aims at good areas and not necessarily for the stumps. And while knocking the pegs off a batsman's wicket is one way of getting ahead of the game, that stat alone does not determine the outcome of a match, and therefore is not an accurate representation of the outcome of the game. Meanwhile, the alternative method, a super over, is a bat v ball fight and is effectively like going into extra time. The only way I could see the ICC bringing the ball out back is if scores were tied at the end of a super over. But even then, I think it'll be the harshest and most uncredible way to go out of a tournament just because one of your bowlers wasn't able to hit the stumps. Thanks for watching.